Today's guest is from Vienna, Virginia, and is a Pulitzer Prize nominated beat writer and author. He has wrote over 300 cover stories at USA Today, and as a corporate leadership reporter in the money section, he has written At the Bat, The Strikeout That Shamed America, the 13th greatest baseball novel of all time. Has his master's in business. Welcome to the show, Dale Jones.
Thank you, Nick.
How you doing?
Being here. I'm doing good. Doing good.
You know, you look like a referee. I feel like you give a lot of technicals out. Hey, he's a rep too.
Yeah, I try not to. Yeah. In fact, I did some research on umpiring back in the 1880s, and back then they didn't have the power to eject managers and players, but they had the power to fine them. But because the owners of the teams liked the fighting and stuff with the umpires, that the owners paid the fines, and so therefore the umpires were just dead meat because everybody came after them, even though the umpire could fine them if they did.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To think back then, like, I couldn't fine you, but I can't throw you out of the game.
Yeah, I thought that was. Yeah, I don't know when the ejectment power came, but that's a survivor technique for officials. That's for sure. You don't use it very often, but it sure need it sometimes.
Do you know what the fines were? Were we talking 10 cents?
Yeah, I doubt if they were much. They might have been a lot inflation adjustment from back then. I mean, the players were only making probably a couple $100 a month, so I imagine a $5 fine kind of meant something to them. But I don't. Inflation adjusted, I imagine they could be pretty steep, but if the team owners are going to pay it for them anyway, it wasn't much of a disincentive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how you been doing? We've connected today, actually, and how have you been doing? I want to get to know you a little bit before we get into everything with the pandemic. What was going on before that happened, and then how's it been through that?
It's actually been pretty easy on me. I'm very fortunate because, as you know, I retired to write books and I do a little freelancing. The only thing that's been affected is my officiating, and I basically used to get up in the morning and write in the morning, have lunch, and then I would go work out, which people think is crazy because I worked out after I ate. So that was affected because I would go to the gym. And that shut down, and then my sports officiating. It was like at the end of March, and I was just at the end of basketball season. In fact, around here, the high schools got all the way to the state championship game, and then they killed the season with one game left. So there were two co-state championship basketball teams.
You got to let them finish.
Yeah, I think they tried to draw it out as much as they could, and then everybody really started panicking. So they just nailed it down. So I haven't done much of that. I've started to do some outside stuff here. High school basketball season is starting up again, but I don't think I'm going to do that just because I'm not real afraid of the pandemic. But if there's any sport to me that would spread it would be basketball. Other than wrestling, I can't imagine you being in tighter quarters. And then the referee essentially has to handle the ball quite a bit, like when you hand the ball out of bounds and on free throws and everything. So if there's a sick player out there, they handle the ball, they give it to you, you handle the ball, and then you stick the whistle in your mouth.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, just the whistle.
Yeah.
If you wanted to catch something, in fact, I used to worry about just getting the flu back before the pandemic during basketball season, because that was always flu season. And at halftime, I'd always wash my hands really good because I always thought that basketball, of all the sports, was just a real contagious sport for the officials, and it is for the players too, because they're breathing on each other. I've been getting the emails from the officials group, and they're going to require masks on the players, which I can't imagine playing basketball with a mask. I've tried wearing a mask, and I have to wear glasses to see, and my glasses fog up. So, I can either not see with with a mask on or not, so I couldn't do it. I couldn't wear a mask. I don't think they're requiring the officials to wear a mask while they're officiating. You have to put, it's probably like the NFL games you've been watching. The officials kind of put the mask on when they go talk to somebody. And I think that's the way they're doing it with the officials, because they got to go to their whistle. Although there are
you got to keep it
whistles.
in your mouth the whole time.
Yeah. I've seen whistles on the internet now that are handheld. They actually sound like a whistle, but you push it with your fingers. So you can actually wear a mask and push this thing that sounds like a whistle. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some officials that are moving to that too. Although as an official, you kind of use the volume of your whistle a lot to
dictate what's going on.
It's almost like talking, you use a low whistle, a hard whistle when, as the infraction is more heavy. You use a kind of a tweet whistle when they're not stopping on the whistle. You kind of tweet. And so that would be kind of hard to do with a handheld whistle.
Yeah. What all sports do you ref?
I do. My daughter was an athlete, so I kind of picked up on girls sports. Basketball is the association I work for does both boys and girls basketball. So I do both in basketball, and then I do fast pitch softball. My daughter was a catcher in fast pitch softball, and then she did kind of field hockey was kind of her fun sport. And so I took that up too. I used to watch her games having no idea what all the whistles were about in that game. And so I took it up and learned the rules of it. And it's actually a good game. And it's a game that's improving because it's fairly new. I don't know if it's played where you are. It's becoming a real big East Coast girls sport. They play it, men play it in Europe and in India.
Yep.
And the men's game is like excellent and fast. And the girls' game is getting that way too, because each year they're improving. I can really see the improvement in the players as they come up from playing youth sports for the first time in field hockey. And they also they've moved to all turf fields around here. So when you play field hockey and move from grass to artificial turf, the speed of the ball just picked up enormously, and they just whack the ball 70 yards down the field. And so that causes the official to have to run a little bit more because the ball is just like moving fast. So the game has really improved.
How many people on the field?
For a field hockey?
Yes.
It's 11. It's
11.
It's 10 and a goalie. Yeah.
Okay. So just like soccer.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's a lot like soccer, except there's no offsides. There's no offsides in field hockey.
Okay. That's cool. Now, when it comes to getting in shape, you say you work out. Do you change your workout patterns depending on the sport you're reffing, or is it pretty much the same all year round?
It's pretty much the same. I try to pick up a little bit on my running before basketball. Basketball requires a lot more running. It's kind of nice because field hockey requires some running, and that season comes before basketball. So I kind of like edge into my running. I'm actually at the age now where a season ago in basketball, I pulled my hamstring. I was doing actually a doubleheader basketball game, and right toward the end of the the second half of the first game, the game was almost over. I pulled my not my hamstring, my calf. I never pulled my calf muscle. My calf muscle went so bad that there was about 30 seconds left in the half, and I could not move. My partner was like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I was like standing in the middle of the floor, and the players were like running around me, and I could not move. And I had to, after the half was over, I had to limp off. And fortunately, the officials for the next game were coming in early, and somebody filled in for me because I was just dead. So I had to. I don't think I can do basketball very, very much longer, just because I know I'm going to pull a muscle. But to answer your question, I kind of got in running shape through field hockey, and I try to run a little bit more before basketball. But when I'm not having to run, it's kind of hard on my body. I do a lot of yoga. I do a little bit of weights, not heavy weights, and I do some swimming, and that's kind of what I've done. And then since the pandemic, I've moved almost entirely to yoga. I found this terrific yoga podcast it's like a 90-minute, pretty strenuous yoga class that I've been doing, and that's been kind of probably the main problem with me. I'm kind of an introvert, so I'm alone. My wife and I are alone quite a bit anyway. But I was able to handle pretty much everything.
I love yoga. I've been doing it
Oh,
for
do you do
18 years
yoga?
now. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been doing it for 18 years now. I just feel like
Oh,
it's such a great thing for the body.
oh, it does. Yeah.
I don't one thing about me is when I played, I didn't stretch unless I was doing yoga or was pre-practice or post-practice. Like on a day off, I wouldn't just set time aside to stretch. So I needed to do yoga in order to stretch because my body would just get so tight because I'm not stretching at any time unless it's the warm up before practice or something like that. Then I stretch, and then as the older you get, then I had to start stretching to play basketball, pickup games, and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
but
you're a lot younger than I am. Wait a few more years, and even the stretching doesn't help. Yeah.
nobody likes a referee.
Oh, come on.
I don't. Have you ever met anybody that likes a referee?
Well, usually about half the people, every call, about half the people like you. Yeah.
What's the most interesting part to you, and what do you like the most about reffing?
The thing I like the most is when I make a call that the only time you get in trouble is on a close call anyway. But when I make a call that I am sure that I made right, but because of different angles and because of partisanship and stuff, the crowd or the coach or the players are really getting on me about the call. I actually like taking the heat on that. And on the other extreme, on the opposite of that, is when there's a close call and people are getting on me and I'm not sure.
If you made the right call?
It was either so close I don't know, or for some reason I was just slightly out of position, like in baseball or softball, tag plays and that kind of thing. It doesn't always matter how close you all are to the call. It's the angle of the call. And in fact, when I kind of think back on my calls after games, I usually think about where if I wasn't sure if I got the call right, it's usually where I was. And I'm sure I make wrong calls even when I'm in perfect position, but that's the only thing I can control. If I can get in the right position, I'll usually make the right call. And if I don't make it, there's really not much I can do. I've done what I can by being in the right place. But that's what I like the most, is when I make a good call that the other people, we call it kicking a call. If you miss a call, it's kicking a call. And I just think to myself, all you people just kick that call.
Do made up calls exist? Makeup calls? Like if you ever like, man, I missed that one, but that one's close, but I missed the last one, so I'm gonna give it to him.
Yeah, maybe for beginning officials do that, but they soon learn that all that does is dig you deeper in a hole. Because if you miss a call and everybody's mad, and then you intentionally miss a call to make up for the bad call, then you got the other side mad, and you've also started to look like you're a really bad official, because everybody on the court or on the field can see that you missed, not only the first one, but the second one. So all you do, I think, is dig yourself deeper if you try to do makeup calls. You just have to accept that you missed a call and then try to get all the other ones right from then on.
I was just thinking about it. Like as long as I played sports, I played soccer, baseball, basketball, football, all kinds of sports, but I've never thought about the skill level it takes to be a ref. And until you start talking about being in the perfect position, right? To try to work to certain spots on the court, to get in certain positions, to be able to see the best call possible. And, we were talking earlier today about cameraman. Like, you got to be trained to fall back on your training to understand where you're looking at.
Yeah.
As an official, you have to be trained too to where you're looking at.
That's exactly right.
It may be easy to look somewhere else, or you can't watch the play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, the angle is probably the most important thing about any type of officiating. It's where you're at the time of the play. And that's how I explain when I tell people that haven't officiated how important angle is. I tell them, think about a really close play that you watched on TV in an NFL game, and how you'll watch one slow motion instant replay and you'll think it's one way. and you know that the official might have missed it or he got it right. They'll show an entirely different angle, and you're still convinced that the official got it right or wrong. And then they'll finally show the camera angle where you can actually see whether the knee was down or whether they crossed the goal line or whatever. And when you finally get that angle, now the call is easy. So that's how it's like really easy to explain to people who haven't officiated how important angle is, because all they have to have seen is 4 or 5 different angles, slow motion angles. And that's what I wish I had, really, is slow motion as well as angle. If you had that, it would be great. The officials don't have the benefit of slow motion, but they do work to get angles. And I'm not a high level official, but I'm amazed at how many calls that I think they got wrong, and I'll see the replays and I'll still think they got it wrong until they show the angle that is just the perfect angle, and I'll say, wow, I'm impressed. Of course, when they get them, the perfect angle will show they missed it too.
Yeah, it's such a split-second call. You don't have really a lot of time to think about it. It's like right now. And one of the things for me as a receiver, I was always be consistent. As long as the refs are consistent, it's almost like a strike zone. As long as you know where it's at, it might be a little high, might be a little low, might be a little outside, but as long as you're consistent through your calls, right? As long as the refs being consistent. But then you get to the end of the game in basketball and football and all sports, some refs will swallow the whistle and let the players decide it, and some refs will make the call.
Right.
You seem like the type of guy that wants to make that call. Like you said, you like the pressure. You seem like the guy that's like, hey, if you foul, it's a foul, no matter if it's the last second of the game or the first second of the game.
Yeah. On good nights, I hope that's the way I am, because it really is important to make the. I mean, it takes a little bit of courage. I think that's what it is. Officials that swallow the whistle, it's kind of a lack of courage, because to blow to sound a whistle that may decide a game, especially if you think it's close enough where you might have got it wrong. I think the slow motion replay and the challenges have actually probably
hurt.
Well, I think it's probably improved that a little bit, because instead of the official thinking, if I make this call and it goes against the home crowd, they're going to boo the credit out of me. I don't think they're worried so much. This is at the high level televised games. I don't think they're as worried so much about that as they used to be. They're more worried about all the replays that are going to be shown on ESPN for the next week, and how embarrassed they're going to be if they just replay something that they got wrong. And so I think it's probably actually helped that they're not worried so much about the reaction of the crowd and the players and the coaches. They're more worried about getting the call wrong because of all the television replays that are going to be coming up if they got it wrong.
The only thing that I don't like about the basketball replay system is they can't correct the call, right? If it's the end of a game and let's say the ball's out on me, but a guy hit my arm that was a foul that didn't get called and the ball went off on me, they still have to say, well, it went off on you. It's the other team's ball. Even if you don't call the foul, I still think the ref should be able to make the call right. If he can judge and say, well, the reason he lost control of the ball was because of the foul. Now, we don't have to call a foul, but we should be able to make the call right, because that's what instant replay is for. It's to right the wrong or right the situation at the end of a game.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
It does. And I think more and more officiating is going to be done by machine. They're already testing. I don't know why the strike zone in baseball, if they're accurate, they show whether the ball was a strike on every pitch. They can show that. And if those machines are accurate, then I don't know why there's a human being back there trying to see whether that ball was within 1/16 of an inch of the plate or not, when a machine can do it for them. So I think the plate umpire is on his way out fairly quickly, and wherever they can put machines. The only trouble with replay is the delay in the game, And I thought, to avoid the delay in the game, I thought maybe they should require before a coach can challenge a play, they have to do it before they watch the replay. If they want to watch it with their naked eye and think that the official blew it and challenge it, that's one thing. If they have the benefit of watching this slow motion replay and challenge, it slows down the game. It makes the official work look worse because they get challenged only on the calls they miss. I bet if they challenged calls that the coach could see only with the naked eye, the official would get a large percentage of those right. But it's kind of a balancing act. Like you said, you want to get the call right, especially if it's an important professional game. I mean, people's livelihoods are on the line here, so get it right, and therefore you should use replay as much as possible. But then you slow the game down. If they can figure out how to do it quicker, I think that's probably where it's headed.
Yeah, baseball I know you talk about the plate and they show the strike zone and everything. That does make sense to have it automated, but there's just something that's so much better about the human element of error in sports, right? It comes back to bite you sometimes, but sometimes in your favor. But that's the human element. I think that's even when making plays. Sometimes you make the play, sometimes you don't. Right? We shouldn't expect refs to be perfect if a coach and a player can't be perfect.
Yeah. So, well, that's kind of the other. Either it's kind of the balancing act. Do you want the human element, or do you want to get the call perfect? Right. So it is a dilemma. I kind of like the human aspect too, but there have been some blown calls that are very important. I think of that one. I can't remember who it was. Somebody threw a perfect game until the last pitch, and the base umpire called somebody safe at first that was clearly out. That was like about 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
It ruined a perfect game for a pitcher, and maybe it was further back because they didn't have the replay
at the time.
The challenge. I think that's when they brought the challenge in, was after that season, for that very reason, because he took away a perfect game from a pitcher and it wasn't even that close of a play. He just kind of like really choked on it. And probably because it was a perfect game and this was the last out of the game. And he was probably thinking, instead of looking at the call, he was probably thinking, wow, I've really got to get this right because this is the last play of the game. And that's what he was thinking, instead of thinking about
just doing a job.
The foot in the glove. When you're calling first base as an umpire, you're watching the foot hit the base and you're listening for the ball to hit the glove. That's how they call that. That's how they call first base. It's the most accurate way to do it. And so if you're not doing that, if you're not like focusing on the foot and listening for the ball hitting the glove, those bang bang plays, you miss quite a bit. They're actually pretty easy to get unless they're extremely close if you use that system.
Yeah, didn't know that. That's awesome. What's your sports background? Like growing up, you grew up in Virginia?
No, I'm from Rocky Mountain West is where I grew up. I was born in Utah. I moved from there when I was 3. My father worked for the Forest Service, so he got transferred around. Lived in Cody, Wyoming.
Wow.
Lived in Denver, Colorado. Lived in Durango, Colorado. Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then that was all in my childhood and high school years. And then my first, I was actually a sports writer coming out of, I got a journalism degree from the University of New Mexico. And my first job was at a small town newspaper in Texas, San Angelo, Texas.
I know where San Angelo is.
San Angelo is right in the tornado belt.
Yes, it is.
In the summer, you just hear sirens all the time and wonder if you should take them seriously. So
I used to see tornadoes out of my back window in Fort Worth.
So I did a small town sports writing gig there, and I did one in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then I kind of figured that if I wanted to get to a major newspaper, it's kind of like I got a business degree and I went into business reporting, because it's kind of like being a catcher in baseball. The fastest way to the major leagues in baseball, they say, is to be a catcher. The fastest way to a major newspaper is to be a business writer. So I enjoyed business. It wasn't like I was like bored with the job, but I kind of switched for that reason, because I didn't want to work in small towns my whole life.
Awesome. Which small town did you like the most growing up when you were moving from Utah to Cody, Wyoming, Denver, and I guess Denver's not small, Durango,
Yeah,
and
Denver was the biggest city I lived in until I
yeah,
moved to here. I live outside of Washington, D.C. now. Uh, they're all beautiful. I was a child, so Cody, Wyoming is a small town. I remember I think I moved there when I was 6, but I still remember the rodeo there. You could basically walk to the rodeo grounds. Durango, Colorado was nice when I lived there. It's become more of I've been back since. It's more of a tourist town. It's a big ski town,
okay.
kind of like Aspen, Colorado now. So it's touristy now, but it's a beautiful city or town as well.
I used to
It's,
drive through most of that when I went. I used to drive to Calgary from Texas every year, and I would either go through like Albuquerque up, and you go into. I'd stay in Denver, and then I would drive through Colorado and Wyoming,
wow,
and
beautiful.
stay in Billings, Montana, and then drive into Calgary the next day, or I'd go just Oklahoma City up to Kansas, and then Kansas across Kansas into Colorado. So either way, but yeah, it was always good going up because it was the summer. But coming back was the issue in December when one time I hit 18 inches of snow. I got snowed into Cheyenne, Wyoming. Yeah, we got
Yeah,
snowed in there, and we got
that's a
stuck in.
big,
Yeah, we made it to Denver the next day, and then we were there for like 4 or 5 days.
yeah.
I actually got to see Iverson's debut for the Nuggets.
Oh yeah,
$90 floor seats.
wow.
Yeah, because there was so much snow.
Oh well, that turned out to be a good snowstorm then.
Yeah. So you got your business degree. Where'd you get your business degree from?
I started out. I was working at the time in El Paso, Texas, and so I was doing it kind of while I was working, and so I started it there. And then I hadn't quite completed it, and I got the job at USA Today,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to move out to Washington, and I only needed, I think, 3 classes, and so I begged University of Texas El Paso to let me actually take the classes at George Washington University in Washington D.C., and they approved it. So I took my last 3 classes at George Washington University, and then wrote my thesis out here as well. So my degree is actually from UTEP, the University
Okay,
of Texas El Paso, and I completed it at George Washington University.
that's awesome. And you got the job for USA Today. How was that feeling? Just being able to go to such a big publication like that.
Yeah, it was great. In fact, it was when I was there. It was a very respected newspaper. This was before internet and everything, and USA Today just had a great reputation among readers. A lot of journalists kind of put it down as kind of lowbrow short stories that didn't jump off the page and stuff, but readers just took to it. So when I would make phone calls to try to get interviews, it was like always like really easy to get people on the phone because they just loved being in USA Today. And I know I knew quite a few of the sports writers, and they felt the same way because USA Today really built a reputation as being a sports, you would read your hometown paper for the hometown sports, but if you wanted to read about and get late scores, this was before the internet, you woke up and you got the newspaper and you were disappointed because there was a West Coast game that didn't make it into the newspaper because of the deadline. USA Today used to really build its reputation on really holding its deadline back, trying to get those late games in. So the sports page I know was very well read and liked. Now everybody just gets their scores on the internet. It doesn't matter. And the same thing with business reporting. I can remember when business sections were like a half the business section was stock tables. You'd open up the business page, and then the second half of the business section would be just a long list of agate of every stock on the New York Stock Exchange. And that's how people would find out what their stocks did the day before. And newspapers have been just entirely eliminated that as well, because everybody just looks up their stocks on the internet now.
Yeah, everything's such right now at
So
the
different.
fingertips,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
it's so different.
You got any business advice for everybody through the pandemic? I'm
Well,
pretty sure you talk to enough people.
well, I tell everybody, if you want financial advice, you get what you pay for. That's what I when I watch business TV, I'm always amazed at how the experts can tell you like exactly why the stock market went up today or went down today, but they never seem to be able to tell you the day before if it's going to go up or down. But after it's all over, they can tell you exactly why, as if they knew ahead of time. Well, why didn't you tell me yesterday that it was going to go up or down?
Yeah, it's such a crazy world like we're living in right now with you can see this is a big monopolizing time for the bigger companies, right? They're going to be able to swoop in and buy out a lot of these small franchises and small guys and ladies that have started businesses on a smaller scale because of COVID and the restrictions and everything like that. So, I just hope that people can rebuild and get it back.
Yeah, it really has been a small business recession. I mean, the big companies, especially the tech companies, the Microsofts and the Facebooks and Amazon, they've actually like their profits have gone up due to the pandemic. But the people that are suffering, you think about all the restaurants, both the workers and the restaurant owners, and small businesses everywhere. It's been really a small business, and I think a low people on the low income scale recession. I think people that have good incomes, for the most part, have weathered pretty well. But it's the people that work the jobs where they have to be out in the public, the service industry, the travel industry, all those people that work those jobs that just took a nosedive. So it's been kind of a lopsided. Everybody kept trying to talk about getting income disparity balanced out. That's been kind of a big issue, and the pandemic has done more to harm that than I think any policy could have.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that a lot of those restaurant workers, or all the restaurant workers, pretty much, they make like $2.75 an hour. And
right, if they're working,
if they're working and they make their tips.
Right.
Here in Canada, they make minimum wage in their tips. So it's a little different because you're looking at people that they could work an 8-hour shift and they're only making $20.
Yeah.
Their tips are very important, but now, and when you only have half the restaurant open or a third of the restaurant open, or now they're closing down restaurants and closing down things, it makes it incredibly hard for these people that have, really carried the life flow.
Yeah.
I feel bad. Yeah.
It's takeout too. You don't tip somebody when you drop by a restaurant and pick up something for a takeout. You're not usually not leaving a tip for that.
Yeah. And that's very bad. Now, your background in sports, growing up, were you heavily into sports? Was it something? I noticed baseball is something that you wrote about and you talk about. What was it about baseball, and were there other sports?
Yeah, the baseball was probably because of my umpiring. I write about in my novel. I write about baseball because it was from the umpire's point of view. I wasn't, I think I'm a decent athlete, but I was small. My son's the same way. He was like really good in youth football, and then when he hit high school, all of a sudden he had to. In youth football, they kind of like categorize you by both age and size, and so he was small, and so he was a little older playing against larger kids, but they were younger. So he had kind of a maturity advantage. But once you hit high school, then all of a sudden you're playing football against the same age, only people that are a lot larger. And I that was kind of the same way with me. And I became a gymnast. I went to high school in Albuquerque, and my gymnastics team finished first in the state.
Awesome.
My junior and senior year. So that's what I did, which is probably why I take to yoga now. It's the stretching feels good. I'm not that flexible, but I did play Little League baseball, and this was back in the time before video cameras, but my grandmother had a camera that actually took film movies with a camera, with a home camera with movies, and she gave that to my father. So my father took this camera, and the film was like really expensive and really expensive to develop. So he would sit at my Little League games, and he would start the camera when I was at bat, right when the pitcher was about to deliver the ball, so that he was only running the camera when I, was supposed to hit the home run. And so we've got these like home videos of me taking swing after swing after swing after swing, because he would stop the camera as soon as I swung and missed. And so I don't think he ever caught me catching the ball, but he's got like these, I ought to put it up on YouTube. It'd probably go viral with just like 100 swings a minute. It was basically, I took 100 swings a minute and missed every one. So that's how good I was in baseball.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I liked baseball growing up until I got hit with a pitch as a freshman, and I pretty much said, I'm done with baseball. I got hit pretty hard. I was like, no,
oh, really?
Never again. I don't want to play anymore.
And so you stayed with football, huh?
Football and basketball.
Football's a lot safer than baseball. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, my dad doesn't get it. He's always asking me, he's like, why is it okay to get hit by a linebacker going across the middle, or a 300-pound D lineman, but you're scared of a little baseball? I'm like, one, I'm not scared of a baseball. The baseball targets one area of the body, and it hurts.
Yeah. It leaves the marks of a seam on. I've been hit in the hand with just a softball. A fast pitch softball, those pitchers can pitch up to like 70, which they're closer to the plate. So for the batter, it's almost like a 90-mile-an-hour fast baseball fastball. It doesn't, when it hits you, it's only going 70, but a 70-mile-an-hour pitch to get hit with. I've been hit by some of them, and they hurt. They leave the seam marks on your hand. You get hit in the hand with the ball, and you got the seams of the softball showing on your hand.
Yeah, that sucks.
And catchers always catchers have their gear on, but the ball always seems to find a way underneath their gear where they get hit someplace that for some reason wasn't protected. I'm behind catchers all the. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of catcher's gear, you brought to my attention today about the first Black baseball player. Well, not the first. There was one baseball player before him, but he passed as white because the slave master was his father. But he was the last person, right? Fleetwood?
Yeah, he was before. The Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 47. Yeah. And before that, there wasn't a Black major league player going back until 1884. And in 1884, for the Toledo Blue Jays or Stockings, I can't remember what their nickname was. It was Toledo. The newspapers just called them by their city. They were the Toledos in the newspaper reports. But Moses Fleetwood Walker played one season in 1884, and he was an average hitter. But I read his biography, and from what I read, he was just a great catcher, and he played at a time when actually Black players were just never banned at that time. It's just that there was kind of this gentleman's agreement among the owners that they wouldn't sign Black players, so they never said we banned Black players. It's just all of a sudden there weren't any being signed. And Fleetwood Walker was one that played one season and didn't get signed. And one player that's been blamed for that, who also appears in my novel, is a player named Cap Anson. He was one of the great white players back from the very beginning in professional baseball. He's probably one of the earliest
Hall of Famers.
Yeah, he was a Hall of Famer, but he was like a 1870s, 1880s player, and he's been accused of being a racist, and there's kind of a debate about how much power he had over the team owners banning Blacks. But if he definitely was a racist and didn't want Black players around, he was he was a good enough player and a good enough coach in the game to have an influence on that. So a lot of people think that if he wasn't outright to blame for it, he was a major player in banning. So I've made him in my novel. You know, they're all real people in real life, but they're kind of fictionalized versions of themselves in my novel. And I have Casey, who is never a real player, and I have Moses Fleetwood Walker. The Strikeout of Casey, the poem was written in 1888. So Moses Fleetwood Walker played in 1884, never played Major League Baseball again. And I had him in my novel sneaking back into the game and claiming he didn't know how to speak English. He only knew how to speak Spanish, and claiming he was from Mexico. And so I had him kind of like going incognito in my book as a black player who was playing. It wasn't actually Major League Baseball. This was California League Baseball, which a lot of people considered as good as Major League Baseball. But back then there were only trains. And so all the major league teams were in the East Coast and the Midwest, because you couldn't travel between cities to California.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of great players playing California ball as well.
One of the things that I found very fascinating was they didn't have catcher's mitts. So they didn't have gloves.
That's right.
So you just caught the ball without a mitt.
They did. Yeah. In fact, he catches in my book, he's catching barehanded, which just kind of blows me away how they did that. A lot of catchers early in the game would stay back. They would basically stay back away from the plate, probably try to stop the ball on the bounce, unless there was a runner on base. Once there was a runner on base, now they couldn't just let the ball bounce by them. They now had to get up to the plate, and that's when they had to be tough. I imagine catchers really liked it when runners weren't on base back then, because
foul tips.
Yeah,
anything.
Yeah. You would just let the pitch go to the backstop if you didn't have a runner on base. In fact, I don't know, you know, if there wasn't an umpire behind the catcher, the catcher would let the ball go by.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no harm in letting the ball go by if nobody's on base.
Exactly. And when we look at the whole racist angle from Cap Anson, it's 17 years post-slavery, right? And I think even slavery went into 71 in the South because nobody got the memo that it was done
right
in the South, right? So it went, I think 4 years extra until June 19th, I believe. So when we look at that, and you have guys that come from a plantation or born on a plantation, and we look at Moses, he went to Michigan. He was playing on their baseball team, I believe, at Michigan.
Oh, he played on the Oberlin college team.
Oberlin College, yeah.
I think it's in Ohio. Yeah. He was actually he was raised in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, just over the slave line. There was the river that divided the slave line. He was just over that, and he grew up in a community of Quakers who were very anti-slavery, and his father was a doctor who he was like the first doctor in I'm saying Pennsylvania, but I think it's Ohio. And he was the first black doctor in Ohio, and he actually made a pretty good living because there weren't dentists at that time either, and he became an expert at extracting teeth. And back then people had a lot of dental problems. And if you had dental problems, you basically pulled the tooth when it was time. And so his father was a doctor, his mother was a midwife. And so, and he actually went to college. He didn't graduate, went to Oberlin, played college baseball there where he met his wife. So he was actually a college educated African-American in 1884, which is, pretty unusual.
Yeah. 17 years post-slavery, plays 1 year, sleeping on a park bench,
Yeah, and
his brother sleep on park benches. Yeah.
His brother. He had a brother that played in the Negro Leagues, I think, for a Pittsburgh team. But you couldn't make very much money. in the Negro Leagues. In fact, the Negro Leagues, they essentially played about a season about half as long as the major leagues, so that they could get out and barnstorm and play exhibition games, because that's where they actually made a living. They couldn't really make a living playing it in the Negro Baseball League.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating. And I know that Cap got in his contract that blacks couldn't play, right? I read that Cap had actually put it in his contract that blacks couldn't. He would not play if blacks were playing on any other teams. And I
Oh,
mean,
oh yeah. I don't know if it was in his contract, but he did. He
yeah,
did actually walk off, or threaten to walk off the field if the opposing team had a black player. Yeah.
it's just so crazy when you look at the whole system, and then today, the Negro League stats are now being considered as professional stats with the Major League Baseball stats.
Yeah, that news just broke today. The major leagues just announced that they're going to accept Negro League. They're going to accept the Negro Leagues as major league teams from 1920 to 1947, I think, when Jackie Robinson broke in. So all the Negro Leagues during that pocket of years are now all considered major league players, which I think I've been doing quite a bit of research since this broke, trying to find out what records were going to fall now that the statistics are allowed in. And that's one of the things that I kept reading stories from major publications, the New York Times and NPR and stuff, and they had pretty good stories on what was happening, but it wasn't answering my question as well. What records are going to fall? And they may have updated the stories by now, but the one I found that I wrote it down here. The one I found that is one of these great records that people think is never going to fall. Ted Williams batted 406 in 1941, and
Josh Gibson.
he was the last major league player to bat over 400. And Josh Gibson in 1943, 2 years later, batted 449. So he will now shatter. He'll not only make it 2 years more recent that the last 400 hitter is. He has now got a number that, they say Ted Williams 406 may never get beaten. 443, you can bet the ranch that nobody is ever going to
Nobody will ever
bat 443.
Batting's getting worse.
Yeah, and he had power too. They used to the white people used to call Josh Gibson the black Babe Ruth, but I read that what really people said was that Babe Ruth was the white Josh Gibson.
Yeah, I heard Josh Gibson's probably the best baseball player to ever play the game.
Yeah. I don't know. It would be nice to know if anybody. I don't think anybody is alive yet that is still alive that saw him play, and I'm sure that there may be photographs of him, but I'm sure there's no video of him. So all these great players, it's like really hard to know how. They've got to be great with the statistics they had, but it would sure be nice to be able to see them, actually know what their swing was like. I have no idea what Josh Gibson's swing even looked like. It would be nice just to see it.
Yeah, I've seen something on Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, and they were talking about the Negro League stats and how a guy went back and was looking at all the stats, and he was working to try to get this done. And they talked about Satchel Paige having so much money that he had a private plane that would fly like the all-star team around to play teams to make more money and to help guys make money. And when we look at pitchers like Satchel Paige, and you look at some of the greatest Negro League players outside of the ones that just converted over, like Satchel Paige, I believe he was well in his 40s when he went to the MLB, right?
Yeah.
So when these guys that were in their primes, and the quality of baseball, they say was so good that it was almost equal to, if not better, than the MLB talent.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
During that
I'm
time.
sure. And I had kind of a dispute with the fact that they're going to add in the Negro Leagues from 1920 to when Jackie Robinson broke in. I was kind of like wondering, why are you cutting it off there? Just because Jackie Robinson was now playing Major League Baseball. What about the great players that were still in the Negro Leagues? You're going to cut their statistics off, and one, I went back and forth. I'm on a Facebook group with that's called Negro League Baseball, and I was trying to figure some of this stuff out. And I looked at Hank Aaron. I started doing some searching on Hank Aaron, and he played a season in 1952 and got 9 home runs with the Negro League team. And if you add those 9 home runs to his total, he now passes Barry Bonds as the career home run leader. And so I'm like posting on, and I'm not seeing this in any newspapers. To me, this is like huge news.
Yeah.
Huge news that Hank Aaron is now the career home run leader, surpassing Barry Bonds. And so I get on the Negro League, and then that's when they reminded me that they're only including Negro League statistics up through 1949. So if Hank Aaron hit 9 home runs in 1952, according to these new rules, they wouldn't be counted. So I have a feeling that they're going to go back and add in a few more of these seasons until, it comes a point where the great players, black players, were in the major leagues, not just one black player in the major leagues, but when the Negro Leagues are no longer a great league because the really good players are in the major leagues, then I can see cutting it off. But until you kind of establish that point, you wouldn't think you would cut it off.
I think that the Negro League All-Star team actually played an MLB All-Star game, and I think they played well over 20 or 30 times, and with the Negro League team winning like 60 to 70% of those games.
Is that right? I'm surprised they kept playing then.
Yeah, it's just that. But when I think about these stats, and we think about the Negro Leagues being like great baseball players, I mean, this doesn't discredit the great white baseball players either. The Mickey Mantles, the Lou Gehrig's, the Babe Ruths, and everybody. But if you look now, the American blacks don't play baseball anymore, really. I think they're under like 4% or something like that of the MLB.
Yeah.
Right now it's either whites or Dominicans or foreigners than it is the American-born players.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of speculation of why that is. I think baseball is not an urban game. I mean, there's not usually a lot of green space in inner cities. I don't know if that's probably partially the reason. I don't know. And the Latinos do,
Yeah.
It's not a rich person sport, because the Latinos, some of the great Latino players have come up from playing youth ball using a piece of cardboard for a glove. That's why they're such great fielders, is because they fielded for so many years using a piece of cardboard for a glove, that their hands got really good. So it really isn't baseball isn't a low income sport. So it must have more to do with the amount of green space, city green space, I would think. I don't know. Do you have any ideas of why there aren't that many black players?
No, because I mean, when I just seen something about Tiger Woods, and when Tiger started in the early 2000s or late 90s, how they thought it was going to take off for blacks to play golf. But we know how expensive golf is, right?
Right.
And everybody just can't go do it. But like you said, in baseball, it does give you the perfect opportunity. All you need is a bat and a ball. Like they were playing in room. They were playing without gloves for a long time. And you see a lot of commercials or a lot of video footage of kids playing without gloves. Right? Everybody didn't have to have a glove to field the ball.
In fact, that makes them better fielders if they learn how to field without a glove, I would think.
Yes. So I don't know. It's actually declined, and it's crazy how the decline happens when baseball players make more money. Right?
More than football and basketball.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
right? So if you look at football, has no guaranteed contracts. I believe the highest paid football player makes $34 million, 35
Yeah.
million, somewhere in
And their
there.
careers are shorter.
Their careers are shorter, higher risk of injury. That's why there's no guaranteed contracts. But then you see these baseball players like Mookie Betts and these guys are signing $400 million deals, 300 $400 million deals, right? Um, so guys in football aren't really signing that. I mean, Pat Mahomes signed a $500 million deal, but he's only got 150 guaranteed, 150 million guaranteed. And I mean, I only say only, but still 150 million guaranteed out of 500 and something. After that guaranteed money's done, he's going to be looking for a new contract because he doesn't want to step on the field without guaranteed money, right? So it's equivalent to when Peyton Manning. I remember when Peyton Manning, I think, was the first quarterback or the first player to sign a $100 million deal in the NFL. Well, he got his guaranteed money in the first 3 years of that 7-year deal, and he signed a new deal in the fourth year. So it's not like Pat Mahomes will only see 500 million if he plays that long, but it will be over the course of 2 or 3 more contracts,
Uh-huh.
right? It's not going to be on this contract where Pat Mahomes makes $100 million. I mean, $500
Right.
million, right? So that's the difference. Baseball, you sign Alex Rodriguez signs that big deal with the Rangers, and then he goes to New York with another big deal because I think he made 275 million with the Rangers. Then he goes to New York and signs another 2 or 300 million dollar deal, and it's just outrageous.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where baseball is getting the money. I guess, I mean, their TV contracts can't be that lucrative. It must be the fact that they play so many more games, and if they get good gate, good attendance, then the money must be coming from there.
Yeah, 81 home games compared to 8 in football,
Yeah,
right? So if you have a good product and you're filling it up, if you can make the playoffs and make some runs, I think you can survive. But we see that now in baseball. Nobody's signing any free agent deals right now. Like baseball free agency has been underway, and nobody's really signing in baseball because of baseball's trying to figure out: are we going to have fans? Are we not going to have fans? We can't afford to go out and sign these people without any fans or with limited fan space for some of the
yeah,
bigger teams,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I can see why they would do wait and see. That's for sure.
Yeah, I just wouldn't just thinking about this whole concept of baseball because it almost is the forgotten sport until the playoffs come around. Then it's always entertaining, and then the World Series, with the Dodgers winning. And I think just over the last 5 years, I think the last 4 or 5 World Series champions hadn't won a World Series, and I think the least one was 35 years. So it's like all these teams that hadn't won in so long are winning. So like Houston and Chicago and the Dodgers now, and I can't remember the other team, but
Yeah. I'm a Washington Nationals fan. They won it the year before
Washington Nationals,
this.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's how do you make baseball exciting again? I mean,
Oh,
they've
geez.
they've quickened up the time between innings. They're doing all these things to try to make it more entertaining. I find that the players now are hitting home runs or striking out. The pitching's getting better. There's more analytics in baseball. There's so much more advantages for a pitcher, I believe, over the hitters. Like, how much better can you get as a hitter? But pitchers are getting new pitches. Instead of pitching 2 or 3 pitches, now they can pitch 4 or 5 different pitches. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so, but baseball is one of those games you can go to. You can talk to your friend the whole game, and when you hear the ball hit, you kind of look and see it. Then you're back to talking.
Yeah, unless you catch a line drive in the side of the head. Yeah, foul ball. If you're behind the screen, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But where did you find your fascination with, because you reference these players from the 1800s and you reference this poem at the bat from 1888. Where did you find your fascination with all the historic features of the sport of baseball?
Yeah, I decided to write historical novels because as a reporter, I wanted to never interview anybody again. So I would write about everybody who's been dead. so so I started out I wrote a book called The Cremation of Sam Mcgee, which is also about a famous poem uh, that takes place. It takes place in 1898 during the 1898 was a big historical year. There was the Spanish-American War, and then there was the Klondike Gold Rush that happened in those years. So I kind of wrote a novel kind of based on those two events, and it's called The Cremation of Sam Mcgee. And then I thought, well, that was kind of fun. And I find myself, I think I'm a good writer, but I'm not as good at creating the story unless I have something to create the story around. So these poems kind of have a story to them, like Casey at the Bat. Uh, it was actually newspaper filler back then. They didn't have wire services, and if they didn't have a story to fill out a page, they would just have their reporters and stuff just like write poems or little things to fill things at the bottom of pages. And that's what this is. Ernest Thayer wrote this thing. Probably, I never heard how long it took him, but he probably wrote it in an afternoon, and he was so ashamed, and he wasn't proud of it all, that he signed it Finn, Phin. And for a few years, nobody even knew who wrote Casey at the Bat. And it got very famous because this actor named DeWolf Hopper, one time he went out on stage and he memorized the poem before he went out on stage. And he had a terrific memory, and he went out there and he recited the poem on stage. And there just happened to be a baseball team in attendance in New York when he recited it. And they stood on their chairs and they cheered when he recited this poem. And so it just became a very famous poem. And I think the reason it's famous is because of the twist at the end, essentially. I mean, it's a well-written poem, but if Casey had hit the walk-off home run, as like, if you'd never read the poem before, you're kind of expecting, Casey took a couple of strikes and now he's gonna like hit the walk-off home run to win the game. And the fact that he swings and misses at the last ball, I think it's the twist at the end that kind of makes the poem kind of entertaining, because it's the hometown crowd and they're just expecting him to be the hero, and he turns out to be the GOAT. And in my novel, he really is a GOAT. In my novel, I make him this like really hero celebrity type person. To everybody just kind of worships him. All the fans, they just think he just walks on water. But in his private life, he's like a lot of like real famous celebrities, where he has kind of a dark side in his private life. So I kind of make him that, and that's why I named the book At the Bat, The Strikeout That Shamed America. It's kind of a play on the fact that it was kind of a little bit shaming that he struck out, and also it's a little bit shaming that everybody just looks up to this guy that probably isn't worth being looked up to, this fictional athletic hero. So that's kind of why I named it that.
What's the feedback that you gotten back on the book?
It's been very good so far. The people that have read the book just really like it. It's moved up to GoodReads, is a place where there's a lot of readers, and they have a category where they've put down 112 baseball novels, and there aren't very many. I looked at the list, and there aren't very many well-known baseball novels. There's probably 10 or 12. So that has allowed my mind to move up I'm at number 13 now. And it probably doesn't deserve to be much higher, because the novels that are ahead of it are really good novels. And I'm surprised that there's so few good baseball novels or good sports novels in general, because there's a lot of good movies that are made out of these novels. And usually, if they make a movie out of a novel, all the novelists say, well, gee, I'm gonna like try to recreate that. Yeah, I would think there would be more good sports novels written. I mean, you look at Bull Durham and The Natural, and there's just
like Bull Durham.
Yeah, Bull Durham's a good movie. I think it's probably my favorite.
Would you consider Brewster's Millions a baseball movie?
I forgot all about Brewster's. That's a good movie. I forgot all about it, but yeah, I don't think it was a book, but it's a great story. Isn't that the one where he was trying to like spend money and it just kept coming back to him?
Yeah, he had to spend $80 million in order to inherit 300 million. So
and
he
he
had
couldn't
30
spend
days
it.
to spend it.
And every time he tried to spend money, he would like make money off of what he spent, right?
Yeah, Richard Pryor. It was a great
Yeah, that
movie.
it was a good movie. You know, I'll have to watch it again. It's been a long time.
John Candy. I believe John Candy was in there. Yeah, John Candy, Richard Pryor. Good old movie. Have you ever thought about getting into documentaries or turning these into movies?
Well, that's where most of baseball readership is in nonfiction. For what you know, readers, for one thing, there's not a lot. First, you start out with a small portion of people that read a lot of books. That's, I don't know what percentage of the population that is, but it's pretty small to start with. And then you take that, and about 70% of those readers are women. And so that, a lot, there's probably a cut of those women who like to read sports, but most of them are into romance novels and that kind of thing. So you're down to 30% of the men, and men like to read primarily like to read nonfiction, and if they read sports, they like to read nonfiction sports. So there's quite a bit of good nonfiction sports out there, but not a lot of fiction sports, and that may be the reason why, is because men primarily like nonfiction. The women who like to read fiction aren't necessarily going to like sports, so maybe that's why there's not too many really good sports novels out there. I think John Grisham wrote Calico Joe. He was a very successful writer with his lawyer. He wrote all those lawyer novels about law and that kind of thing. But he's also a baseball fan, and he wrote Calico Joe. I read that. It's a pretty short book. I wouldn't say it's a great book. It's an entertaining book. And then Field of Dreams was actually made from, there was a book called Shoeless Joe.
Shoeless Joe, yeah.
Shoeless Joe, and I think that's the movie Field of Dreams is taken after that book. And then The Natural, that's more of a fantasy. I don't really care. I read the book too, and I really don't really care for the movie or the book that much, but I do like the premise of somebody having his career, coming up his rookie year, being this player that is just going to be a star, and then for some reason having his career end right there, and the fact that he comes back in his 40s and now is able to play again. I can't even remember why he's recovered enough to play again in his 40s. I think that premise of that is like really good.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's knocking the lights out and running through walls and stuff, it's more kind of a fantasy concept. I think it would make a good movie, just written as just kind of a regular movie of somebody who gets injured or something in their rookie year, and they are going to be a phenom and then just have their career ruined, but for some reason are able to come back in their 40s. I think that would be a really good story.
Who was that? Rick Ankiel, I believe. That was the pitcher. Had the elbow injury, and he ended up making it back to the major league as an outfielder.
Yeah.
From pitcher to outfielder. And I think it was the first time it's ever been done. They tell you your career's over, and then he kind of rebuilds it from playing in the outfield. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
I'm waiting for the first switch pitcher. That's
maybe this should be a movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing with you being a writer. You have at your fingertips to be able to create anything that you want. And it seems like you put it together very well. What is it that you desire to do from this point forward? Is it write more novels? Is it to see if you can create short stories in video form through these novels, or through some of these writings? Or what is it that you really want to do moving forward?
Yeah, I don't have very much of a video background, so I imagine I'll continue to write. I don't have a novel I'm working on right now. I'm basically working more on marketing the books. Marketing is it can be kind of a full-time job. It's hard to focus if you're gonna like write a novel. You have to focus on it. And if you're focusing on that, you really have to neglect all the other stuff. So I think I'm gonna try to continue this genre, where if I write another novel, I'm going to try to find another like really good poem that is a story within a poem, and then try to build a novel around it. But I haven't found that poem yet. If you can forward it to me, or any of your listeners can forward to me any poems they think that would make a really good story in novel form. I'm kind of looking for that.
Well, that's it, man. I appreciate you for joining me and discussing your books. Where can people get the books from?
It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's called At the Bat: The Strikeout That Shamed America. But that's a difficult title to remember. So I kind of looked at this. I called up Amazon. If you go to Amazon's site and you type in strikeout, uh, especially if you type it, if you call up the book section and you type out strikeout, it's the very first book that comes up in the search. If you just type out strikeout through the entire Amazon, I think it's like the third thing that comes up like that. So that's the easiest way to find the book, I think, is to get on Amazon, type strikeout, and you'll see the book. It's got a fire. The cover's got a fire of a bunch of bats burning, and it's At the Bat: The Strikeout That Shamed America. I didn't put Casey at the Bat in the title because I didn't want people thinking it's a children's book. I think there are a lot of children's books. Casey at the Bat. I think they're mostly like the actual poem with people's artistic rendition. They're mostly artists that do pictures that go along with the poem. Okay. So if you have children, those are probably very good. But I didn't want to put Casey at the Bat in my book because I have a lot of people looking for children's books probably looking at my book, and it's a novel, and I wouldn't it's got one kind of a dicey scene, maybe two, so I probably wouldn't recommend it for children that are much younger than 15 or 14.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to reading it, man. I think that's going to be awesome. I hope I don't have too many similarities to Casey.
Well, you gotta, if you keep being successful, then you can worry about the star syndrome that everybody gets. But maybe one day I'll have that problem too. But so far, I've been able to stay unsuccessful enough to stay humble.
Hey, we'll keep playing on the edge when you're repping games. Keep enjoying life. Keep telling great stories, and like I said, I really appreciate you for being able to jump on the Lulu Logic podcast with me and share these stories and talk about baseball, talk about your reffing. I just find reffing is so interesting for a lot of people, and even myself, because it is a different perspective.
Yeah, it is.
So,
they're watching a different game too. If you ever referee, you'll find out that you're watching the game entirely different than you would as a fan.
Yes, coaching's the same way. I coached last year in BC, and as a coach, you can't watch the game. You have to watch for certain things. You have to watch to see what the fronts are, see what if your running back does right, see where the blitzes come from. So you're watching a different game. It's not until after the game when you watch it that you actually see the game.
Right.
Right. So you have to watch it differently to be able to make sure that your guys are doing what's supposed to be done, or how we can be better, or what's going wrong in the game.
Right. Yeah. And so the fans are watching where the ball is, and a good coach is watching to where the people off the ball, if they are getting in the right place and that kind of thing. So and a lot of officiating is done off ball too. That's why you need more than one official, because if you had one basketball official on the floor, all they could do is watch the ball, and off ball, you could see somebody like just smacking somebody. And so if they're good officials, the ones that one official is the primary official on the ball, and they're watching the ball. And if the other officials are doing their job, they're watching off the ball. And so they're not really watching the game if they're watching off the ball. The fans are watching where the ball is.
Yeah. Well, Dale, can you tell them how they can send you the poem or get a hold of you if they have any questions, or just want to get a hold of you? If you have any social media or anything?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I probably find most people. I'm on Facebook, but those are mostly just my close friends. So it's probably harder to get a hold of me on Facebook. So LinkedIn, you can find me, and my email is caseystrikesout@gmail.com.
There it is, caseystrikesout@gmail.com. Thank you, Dale, for joining the Lulu Logic podcast, and we are out.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.